Good morning. I am Reverend Michelle Scott Huffman. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the minister here at First U. I'm glad to be here with you today. I am a middle-aged woman with salt and pepper hair, more salt than pepper the day. It's short and spiky, and I'm wearing black pants and kind of a not really teal, but a color that I don't know how to describe, which I'm seeing all over this room. So I feel like we all sort of got the color memo today, that this is apparently teal Sunday. So this summer we are talking about this new set of words that we're calling the UU values. You may know that have sort of defined who we are and what we believe, but the set of 7 principles for this 40 years. It hasn't been forever, but it's been a long time, and it's forever for some of us in our relationship with Unitarian Universalism. So every 15 years, they revisit the ways that we describe ourselves in our governing documents, and they came up with a new set of words that we're referring to as UU values. So we've been singing this fun Jet Pig song, which may feel a little bit silly. Some of you will be glad to know that after this week, you'll probably need to go downstairs to sing the Jet Pig song. That it might not happen a lot in the sanctuary, but let's see if it's a job. So if you think about Jet Pig as a tonic to help you remember the words that are UU, see if you can name them with me. So J is for justice, E is for equity, T is for transformation, P is for pluralism, I for interdependence, and G is for generosity. Look, the Jet Pig song did its job. Yay. So the other thing that we're doing with these values this summer is we're using one Sunday for each value to imagine what living into that value might look like for us. In theological reflection on the proposed revision to Article 2, Reverend Dr. Sherry Prudhomme writes this about equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. In naming equity as a core value, we come full circle. In our theological heritage, Universalists, Unitarian Universalists understand every person to be held in love and an interdependent web of existence. We understand that every person possesses a spark of the divine in a cosmos where all life is sacred. We understand this world among these people to be the locus of religious and spiritual life. We understand that there is a mandate emerging from our theological heritage to dismantle the structures and systems which silence, harm, and exploit human beings, the varied ecosystems of our planet, as well as to work to create just and sustainable communities without barriers to belonging in our communities for all those who share our values and theological perspectives. We understand that it is ours to do, to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive community. Every person can flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. For those who love the 7 principles as a way to describe this faith, equity pulls together the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, the second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and the 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, into one value, invites us into significant thought and action. Over the last week, I've listened to a series of podcasts from Equitas, an organization founded and housed at the University of Denver, with a mission to advance and apply innovative thinking on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and partner with organizations to effect long-term change through transformational practices. This organization does a lot to raise awareness of inequities and to help people, but more specifically, organizations and workplaces imagine the equity they'd like to see and to help them enact the necessary changes to get there. The first podcast in their series is called Equity is the Future. I recommend checking out that podcast if you're interested in thinking more deeply about how to apply this concept of equity to our personal and communal lives. In the first podcast, they talked about the who, the what, the why, and the where of equity work. After listening to that podcast, I did a little bit of research into the organization and found on their website a place where they outline their values for which they do their equity work as an example of how our values can just to have real impact. So these are the values that they list. We are not neutral. We begin by acknowledging our work is not neutral, apolitical, or ahistorical. We practice radical love. We live the practice of radical love by committing to each other's personal and professional growth and well-being. We evolve as the world does. We are responsive to the consistent change in the state of the world. We lean into the joy. Find the joy in the folks we work with and the work that we do. We are reciprocal learners. We approach our work with openness and reciprocal learning. We are sustainable. We commit to sustainable practices socially and environmentally. We are who we serve. We strive to build an Equity Labs team that is reflective of the people we serve. And we dismantle oppressive systems. We are committed to deconstructing and agitating oppressive systems. So no surprise to anyone who lives outside of the bottom side of a rock in the state of Missouri, that DEI officers and officers on college campuses are under attack in recent years, especially in states like ours. Here in Springfield at Missouri State University, our DEI office has become the Office of Inclusive Engagement because we can't say diversity and equity out loud. Sadly, the attacks probably won't make much difference because DEI officers themselves will tell you that work at the university administration level is often performative, and that they wish the institutions they work for were serious enough about their DEI mission to be a threat to those legislators that are trying to get rid of them. Vague missions with little or no funding to back them up, and even less institutional support when the rubber hits the road, leads to rapid burnout for DEI professionals. The whole situation reminds me of a meme I recently saw on Twitter that said something like, if university professors really had the ability to brainwash your children, more of them would read the syllabus. As a sometime instructor of religious studies, one got me right in my soul. All kidding aside, there seems to be little understanding of the ways that an equity lens on our collective work can be helpful. So I wanted to break it down and help us to think about what the UU value of equity might require, or if you don't like anything being required of you, might invite us to. If we return to the theological reflection that I shared a little while ago, we're reminded of the call to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities where every person can flourish. That is a tall, tall order. And it's the thing that we've been claiming we're trying to do here in this space and in lots of progressive spaces for decades. You may remember a few months ago in a message on equity, we distinguished between equity and equality, noting that while equality means that the government or whatever system is in question treats everyone the same, irrespective of their status or identity. Equity means that in some circumstances, people need to be treated differently or provide different resources in order to provide equal equality of opportunity. Sometimes people think of this difference between equality and equity as a difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcomes. Some people make a really good argument for that, and some DEI professionals push back and are quick to point out that neither equality nor equity can guarantee equality of outcomes. Thus, the language of meaningful opportunity. About meaningful equality of us to consider what equality of opportunity is not meaningful. I think most of us understand the fact that opportunities existing among us does not necessarily mean that those opportunities are accessible to everyone. In terms of economic opportunity, we need only look to the bootstrap ideology to find the breakdown and assumptions of those in privileged situations where we did in fact have bootstraps to pull ourselves up with when other people in different circumstances did not. Likewise, there are various kinds of opportunities that we avail ourselves of which aren't readily available or accessible to others. As a majority of our, and not just ours, all church membership ages and struggles with mobility, hearing, and sight, it becomes evident that our church buildings and services themselves are largely inaccessible and therefore inequitable for many who we desperately want to include. My hope is that as we wrestle with that reality, we are also wrestling with the reality that offerings can also be inaccessible to lots of other people for lots of reasons, and that we might be moved to lean into this value of equity to begin the work of working even harder at inclusion. So asking a lot of hard questions, getting a lot of honest feedback. So if we use that as a starting point, the question of what opportunities we want to offer, and then beginning to further interrogate that offering with questions of access and equity might lead us to ask questions about how we are, as our website says, a liberal voice for religion in the Ozarks. Even that itself is a lofty claim, and invites us to ask the questions about how we are offering this liberal voice for religion in different ways for people who need to access differently. Our Covenant Mission and Vision Task Force are hard at work helping us to hone in on the language to articulate those things that we want to claim we are about and that we want to live into in the next season of this life. But the reality is, in order to do that well, we have to do a lot more hard work. We have to have a lot more hard conversations, and we have to invite a lot more voices into the conversation. If ever you find yourself in a room where everyone agrees, I invite you to run scream from that room until you find people who don't. To come into that space with you and open your eyes to the ideas and the viewpoints, the ideologies, the experiences that are different from your own. Because friends, we are just as guilty as fundamentalism in the rural part of the world, religiously, politically, socially, as those that we point fingers at on the conservative side. Educator and consultant CBD has created a framework that they refer to as preemptive radical inclusion that is helpful as a way of thinking about equity and the work of inclusion. PRI means that we intentionally position ourselves before we know anything at all about anyone in the room to presuppose that everyone is always and already in the room. that every accessibility question, accommodation, every opportunity to engage in a way that's not ours is already needed in the room. If we can imagine that it's a need, if we've ever been told that it's a need, then we become responsible for making our space equitable in that way. Beale gives an example of an ice cream sundae party, as this hypothetical party host, we'll call them George, distributes invitations throughout the neighborhood saying, all are welcome, all are invited, come one, come all to the ice cream sundae party. And as guests arrive, they ask what's on the menu. And George says, there's vanilla and there's chocolate. And the guests are like, oh, but what about cookie dough and rainbow sherbet? And do you have any vegan options or sugar-free? Or what are the dairy-free options? How do I know that this option is gluten-free, since somehow miraculously gluten is in everything that it shouldn't be? And George responds, what's wrong with this just plain regular vanilla or chocolate? And if you need more than that, we have French vanilla and vanilla bean. We have different kinds of vanilla, and we have German chocolate and chocolate chip. Aren't those options enough? Can't you be grateful for what's being offered here? So George is considering purposes and perspectives without considering what it might actually mean to throw an ice cream sundae party where all people and needs and preferences and dietary restrictions and health considerations truly are welcome. One of the things that I love about Friendly Feast in a UU church is that you walk into the kitchen and these elaborately created index cards that have every ingredient that's in a dish. And that's not just because we're and we like to say them and write them, but because we care about the accessibility of what's being offered there to anyone who might come, right? It means that in the kitchen, we keep the gluten-free options completely separate from all the other options, because the people who need those don't need to be filtering through all of the gluten on the table to get to the thing that they could have eaten if we hadn't mixed it in with everything else, right? It's simple things like that, that if we don't have those dietary restrictions, we've probably thought about. But once someone has told us or asked us, why wouldn't we make inclusive choice? That's equity. For any of us in progressive spaces, we are continually processing and unlearning. Isn't that the foundation of progress, after all? We work to avoid assumptions as best as possible and remain humbly open to feedback and being called in when we do miss the mark based on our privileges, identities, and internalized biases. You see, someone shouldn't have to repeatedly come out as whatever identity or need is being called to be respected with preemptive radical inclusion. We already and always assume that those needs that have been identified to us are going to be present in the room and that we can make the space welcoming, knowing them. In reality, in all the spaces where we live and work and do community together, we have equity and inclusion work to do just to fully include the folks who are already in our midst. And that'd be a start to eventually doing it preemptively. Now, we can't really know all of the needs of all of the people all of the time. And it's unrealistic to imagine that we can always meet them, and that there won't be competing needs in a group of any size. What we do is listen closely to everyone about the needs and desires outside of our own personal viewpoints or experiences, and imagine how we might include or accommodate them. That orientation of the world is a starting point. Beyond that, Equity is finding out from as many people as humanly possible what is needed to be a part of the offerings of equity is organizations doing the party or committed to the practice being at least 50% of board being made up of people with the current lived experience of poverty. Equity is always looking for another lens, another voice, another viewpoint to include to help us hone our own hospitality. Equity is a culture where we teach children and adults alike to add for themselves by naming what they need and what they want to experience, how they can have meaningful equality of opportunity, but also that we make it a practice to ask and don't always put that responsibility on people who have a long time in spaces where it was safe to name this or to want what's different from the majority. Equity is pushing back against privileged and ignorant ideologies that erroneously claim that in this land of opportunity, every person achieve everything might to achieve with just the resources that they already have. Equity is not just espousing the inherent worth and dignity of every human, but creating pathways that honor it. Equity is individual attention and action, and also process and policy. Equity is, as Equity Lab says, the future, and hopefully, as much as humanly possible, the project of our present. Equity is a UU value that we can live into with great intention and expectation. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Well, good morning. My name is Mark McGinn. I've been around here for a few years, and I've been a Unitarian for, I hate saying over half a century, but that's, I'm going to be reading the Joys and Concerns. One of the things that is most important to us that we share in the concerns that we all have, and they are different, and of course, the joy. It's the part with having to use the phone and the computer. Marilyn will help out. I'm a relatively tall, elderly fellow with gray long hair. I'm wearing a black shirt, orange pants, orange socks, and black shoes. Glasses are black and yellow. So let me start out with this. My name is Mark, and I'm a member of the Pastoral Care Committee. As a community, we share joys and concerns to keep connected. Today, we drop a stone as symbolic of the ripple effect each of these joys and concerns in our community. Slips of paper are available at the greeters table for those in the sanctuary to use joys and concerns. During the week, you may send your joys and concerns by email to pastoralcare@springfielduu.org, or by leaving a voicemail on the church phone, which is 417-883-3922. If you're on Zoom, please use the chat box now for sharing your joys and concerns. Oh, I don't have to say that. All these joys and concerns will be included in the members' email on Tuesday. We honor each joy or concern with a stone dropped in a shared bowl of water. This morning, are the children? I don't know who's. You, here come the children. I'm honored that you've been able to remain so long. This morning is okay, you're going to be doing that. And now, as we begin this time of sharing, we know that though we are in multiple physical spaces, we are together in beloved community. That is us. Webcam, got the webcam going. To begin, we hold and love all of us, those present and those absent. We drop a stone for this community. It says begin reading from the chat box. Pardon? Okay, great. So we honor the complex and heartbreaking struggles of our world. We drop a stone for all who are impacted. May we hold these in our hearts and minds. May our community do love. Oh, there they are.
Leave it to
They're
be you.
sneaking under here. Oh, here's another one too, right?
That's an announcement.
That's not us.
This is for you.
This is ours. Here we go. Bear with me. I've been away and very ill for some time, so I'm well, maybe a lot nutty. We have a joint concern from Michael Rodriguez. Do you know what that's? Am I saying?
Junior.
Junior. Okay, Michael Rodriguez Jr. My 52nd birthday is tomorrow, the 29th, along with Bonnie, which I can't, still without my, I'm still without cat and have been threatened to give that away. I'm sorry for that, Michael. We were thinking of you. Becca Gray, go ahead and drop that stone. Next stone will be Becca Gray, celebrating a close friend, Bruce. Tomorrow is 1 year since his passing away. Drop a stone for that. And our next stone will be from Ryan McCoy. I accepted a farm in Oklahoma with the university doing project management education grant to bolster education rigor and with almost 30 rural districts throughout the state. I'm so excited for this new opportunity, but also sad to leave communities I've engaged with over the last years. This will be my last Sunday at church, but I will complete my board turn until December. Ryan, oh, Ryan, thank you for luck. And I really appreciate the rural part. That's well, thank you. Drop the stone for Ryan. We honor, do we read the end here? Yeah. We honor the complex, heartbreaking struggle. We drop stone for all who are in closing. For those joys and concerns that remain spoken, we drop a stone. Thank you. May we these in our, may our community love and boost celebration. Our physical space, we still share space together, huge unity. And now let us join together in 1 minute of shared silence, followed by Spirit of Life. Oh, he does that. Do we have that up there? Spirit of Life? Not yet. There we go.
Good morning. My name is Era. I'm 51 years old and I use her pronouns, and I am the proud owner of 2 new spinal discs. And I'm happy to say that they are doing their job. And I'm really happy to be back in my beloved community today. Our closing words are adapted from a reading by Andrea Hawkins Camper. May we see as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to. And this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our values, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience. The final music today is Wake Now My Senses. It's number 298 in the gray hymnal. Feel free to stand if you'd like and sing.
We'll do verses 1, 3, and 4 if you're following in the book. I hope they're what the slides show. Friends, as we get ready to extinguish this chalice that has been in our midst, I invite you to think about the ways that you take sparks with you from this place. To first from here to the kitchen, to get to know someone you don't already know, and then take them out into the world. We will now extinguish our communal and personal chalice, following with our unison words of closing. Which will appear on the slides momentarily. I want to say a big thank you to our AV team back, because the computer is not cooperating today. So everything that has happened here has been a miracle. Our service here is ending. Our service to the world begins anew.